REPL stands for read, eval, print and loop. Read means reading the user input. Eval means evaluating the user input. Print means printing or outputting the result. And loop means returning and waiting for the new input. Let's understand this with an example. Let's go to command prompt or terminal if you're using Mac OS. And to start REPL, just type node in the command prompt or terminal and press enter. Now you can execute any JavaScript expression in this command prompt. For example, let's say I want to add two numbers. So 30 plus 20. Now when I press enter, first it will read this expression, then it will evaluate this expression, then it will output the result, it will print the result, and then it will wait for the next input. So if I press enter, you can see the result has been printed here, it has been outputted here, and now it is waiting for the next input. And that's why we call it as REPL. Read to read the expression, read the input, eval to evaluate that expression, print to print the result of that expression, and loop to again wait for new input. So this environment allows us to execute any JavaScript expression, any JavaScript code outside of the browser. For example, let me create a variable here. I'll call it user. And to this variable, I'm going to assign an object. This object is going to have a name property. Let's say name is John, and it is going to have an age property. And let's say age is 28. Let me press enter. And now let me try to access the name property on this user object. So now if I press enter, you can see John has been printed here. Okay, so REPL is simply an environment which allows us to execute JavaScript or more specifically Node.js code. We start this environment by executing the node command. So in order to start REPL, first we had to type this node command and press enter, and then we can execute any JavaScript code. Now, if you want to exit this environment, if you want to exit REPL, you can press Ctrl C on keyboard. And once this environment is closed, all the variables and objects which we stored earlier are gone. So if I restart the REPL now by typing this node command, and now if I try to access user.name, and if I press enter, you see we got an error. User is not defined. So previously when we started REPL using this node command and we created this user object, and when we close that REPL by pressing Ctrl C, all these variables and objects are gone. Okay, so the code which we write here is not saved anywhere. We can use this environment, that is this REPL, to play around with Node.js code and execute some JavaScript logic, but we don't use it for development purpose. We can also start REPL in VS Code built-in terminal. So let me open VS Code, and there let's go to this terminal and click on this new terminal. So here it has opened a terminal. Here I can type this node command, and if I press enter, it will start the REPL. And there again, I can execute some JavaScript code. For example, I can say 12 plus 12. So this is also a JavaScript expression. Let's create an object here. Let's call it maybe user. And to that, let's assign these curly braces. And in there, let's create a name variable. Let's say name is Steve. And let's create a gender property. And let's say gender is male. And now let's try to access the gender property of this user object. So you can see male has been logged here. So we can also start REPL in VS Code built-in terminal. And for your information, in this entire course, I'm going to use this VS Code as my code editor. You can use any code editor of your choice, but if you want to follow along with me, you can also download and install VS Code and use it. Also, keep in mind that Node.js supports all versions of JavaScript. It's not like it only supports a specific version of JavaScript. All versions of JavaScript is supported by Node.js. Alright, now to exit REPL, you can type this .exit, or you can press Ctrl C on keyboard. So if I run this .exit command, we have exited the REPL. Let's start the REPL again. For that, we can type this node command. And now if I want to exit this REPL, I can also press Ctrl C. And if you want to clear this terminal, you can type this cls command and it will clear the terminal. Now, before we wrap up this lecture, I also want to talk about a special variable called underscore. So for that, let me first restart the REPL. Now here, let me write an expression. Let's say 20 plus 10. When I press enter, the result is 30. Now, if I say underscore and if I press enter, you can see that 30 has been logged here. So this underscore is a special variable which stores the result of the previous expression. If I say underscore minus 10, in that case, the result will be 20 because this underscore is storing this value 30. And now the result of this expression will be stored in the underscore variable. So now this underscore is storing 20. And to prove that, let me type underscore here. And if I press enter, you can see 20 has been displayed here. So keep in mind that underscore is a special variable which stores the result of the previous expression. Alright, so this is all from this lecture. In the next lecture, let's create our first node application.